People who clean up after festivals and similar events, what's the best and worst things you have found left behind? I was working at a festival, although not doing clean up, and stayed till the day after. The amount of tents people leave behind, brand new tents. Basically, people just buy new stuff for that festival and then can't be bothered to bring it home, dispose of it properly. I ended up with a brand new 10-person tent, thanks to some other people's laziness. I helped out some hippie friends of mine running this little hippie festival called Chronophonium. About 500 people camping for 3 days. Lots of themes around sustainability, recycling, and whatnot. Almost everyone left brand new tents in disheveled states all over the place. You can buy a cheap tent for next to nothing at the warehouse, New Zealand's Walmart. I reckon people are packing up to go on the last day hungover as fuck and they just want to mentally write off everything and get home ASAP. These same people would have launched into monologues about wastefulness from big box stores and sustainable reuse at any other time. When you're hungover and coming down from a 3-day bender, principles go out the window. Even worse, people who triumphantly declare something like, "You know what? I'm just going to leave the tent here as a donation. Why not let someone else have it, right?" Then feel all altruistic about themselves as they leave their garbage behind. I'm an usher at my neighborhood movie theater, so I dunno if this counts, but I found a plastic bag under a seat with 6 guppies swimming around inside, so I kept the guppies for myself, lol. I had to Google how to take care of fish, but it was fun and I still have them today. I cleaned up for an event once, and it was an event where you weren't allowed to bring your own alcohol in, so they can get you to buy it from the event itself and whatnot, so cops were taking people's alcohol. Cool, that's fine. I was cleaning up and 2 cops walked over and asked if I was 18. I showed them my license to prove I was, and they gave me almost $1,000 of untouched alcohol that they'd confiscated from people trying to sneak it in. Bottles of vodka and tequila, a lot of beer and rum, and a bunch of ciders, all given to me cause I was a volunteer and not getting paid otherwise. Was fucking great. I've cleaned up and found entire cooking sets and chairs. I did a clean at a 3-day music festival once. Literally the first night I had to clean one of the portable shower cubicles, because someone had shit in the corner and stuck a cocktail umbrella in it. Bottle of rum, lots and lots of drugs, watches, phones, perfectly good clothes, welly boots, wallets, cash, etc. Worst is shit tents. As in, abandoning your tent but doing a massive shit in it before you go so it can't be reused. Not my profession, but I lived in the downtown area of my city when I was younger, and every year for the last 100-odd years they've had a huge festival in that downtown area celebrating the fruit crop. Although nowadays it's less about the crop and more about the kids from the local university getting wasted. Anyways, I stepped out my back door on the last night of the festival and saw a young woman passed out in the alley. I ran over to her as quick as I could to make sure she was alive. I had 911 on the phone and they advised me to poke her with my foot just in case she was alive, and responded aggressively. So I poke this chick with my foot and almost die of a heart attack myself when she leaps up, screams like a fucking banshee, and throws an empty bottle of Fireball square into my chest. She took off running, stumbling down the alley, and stopped about 50 feet away from me, takes off her dress and completely naked, starts pissing in the road. Then she took off down the street. The 911 operator just says, "Did she respond to the nudge with your foot?" Not a cleaning person, but I saw a prosthetic leg left at the end of a metal festival. I was at a metal festival once, and when we were drunk and high, we decided to go into the funfair bit on the way back from the last performance of the night. A friend of mine went down the helter-skelter, followed by a woman whose leg fell off when she got to the bottom. For a second we were trying to figure out if we actually saw what we had seen, but it was a prosthetic leg. I found a cooler and $135 in the lot after a Phish show. We were too wasted to leave a music festival outside of LA once, so we just hung out and waited for everyone else to take off. When my BF and I finally got straight enough to pack up, we walked through a wasteland of expensive brand name tents and chairs. We put our stuff away and then literally just walked around picking stuff up. The people cleaning had already picked through all the good stuff, and were literally filling wheelbarrows full of things. We ended up scoring a Moose Jaw 8-person tent that was barely used. I found a few pair of designer glasses and a crap ton of other clothes like hoodies and very nice jeans. My BF found a really expensive folding knife and a brand new Canon 5D that had one picture of someone's butt on it. He found a coin purse that had $300 in it, and no ID under a styrofoam cooler. We also found a Yeti cooler that was filled with crushed hard seltzer cans and a poo that we cleaned out. We packed his SUV literally to the brim with expensive stuff and have been using it all for years. Did it once, as a fundraiser for a youth organization, and collectively we found £3,000 and 10 mobile phones, and this was during the days when it was a somewhat luxury to have a phone. My dad used to be the guy in charge of renting out the Knights of Columbus Hall. Per policy, he had to be on site during the event, but would clean up after. The cleanup would usually be the next day, and I'd come along to help. The best thing we found was a $500 tip left behind by the father of the bride after a wedding reception with a little thank you note. The worst was finding the punch bowl the next day after someone had puked in it and put a lid over it. I'm pretty sure it had been spiked with something pretty strong before that, too. Poop tent. It's a 5-gallon bucket filled with laundry detergent with a toilet seat on top placed in a cheap tent. Imagine open that sucker up after 4 days of 100-degree weather. Dead body. It was an apparent OD. Booze and drugs. Also a nitrous tank. That night after work was fun. Dead body? Wow, a lot of these are drugs and stuff, but man, that's a whole other level of messed up. I like how he explained the poo bucket but mentioned the dead body in passing. Not quite what was asked, but I have an uncle who runs a 2-day festival. It is held on tribal land. At the end, people from the tribe were ready to clean up after the weekend festivities. That was part of the contract. After last act, he gets up on stage and asks the festival goers to help clean up after themselves. The crowd left it clean. No cleanup needed after. So guess clean grounds after a weekend festival may count. I feel like it might have been partly because they were on tribal land, so they felt obligated to help them, instead of causing further harm to their land. Probably also because they were directly called to help at the end, instead of the beginning, which I don't even get why you're asking at the beginning. Most people probably won't remember you said it by the end. I worked as a sound engineer for an under-21 club in Alaska for a couple years. You'd find all sorts of stuff left behind after shows. For some reason, nearly every other show some scene kid would decide to plug their phone into charge somewhere and forget about it. We'd also find all sorts of drugs. I think the best thing we ever found, though, was a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, a $2,500 amp that was probably going for $1,700 new at the time. Me, the promoter, and my guitarist called literally every guitarist that had played there that week to try to get it back to them. None of them claimed it. So my guitarist got a new amp out of the deal. Club near my office had a fire on their party deck. I guess with insurance dollar they decided to remodel entirely. I dumpster dove and came out with 3V, large 300-watt stage speakers, a guitar amp with a broken carry handle and 3 preamps. I took as much as I could fit in my little car and sold it all on CL for about $600 by the following weekend. I worked for a summer driving the buses and cleaning them for a summerfest. Never found much left on the buses except a lot of vomit. Except this one time we were walking through the lot tallying how many buses had a certain type of radio for the company, and I found a money pouch left on the bus by one of the girls whose job it was to collect payments from those riding the buses to the fairgrounds. In those days I was a poor college student, and I choked when I saw there was around $2,000 in there. But I was also a good girl and turned it in. Apparently they had been set to fire her and sue her for the stolen cash, so I saved her from a criminal record, but of course she still lost her job for being careless. I never did get even a thank you from the company. Not a rave, but when I lived at a party house in my early 20s, I once cleaned up after a big night and found a cigarette with lipstick on the end you typically light. The lipstick wearer had smoked it backwards and inhaled nearly the entire filter. Money, lots of alcohol, drugs, phones, clothes. Depending on the festival, you can come across a lot of designer clothes. Those are the most common things you'll find. Camping gear is an obvious one, but you see some good quality brand stuff that is all new, chairs, air mattresses, etc. More unusual or expensive things found are foldable Ray-Bans, MAC makeup brushes, which can be €60 plus per brush apparently, crazy, bike, gold necklaces and other small things like that. I would just like to add, as people have been saying they leave their tents behind. This is littering. Unless you take it down and pack it up and leave it somewhere for a charity collection, then you are littering. For every one tent that gets taken down and reused, there is hundreds that just get bulldozed and go to landfill. The charities only get a short amount of time to take down and pack up tents before they get hunted off by security, and the whole lot gets bulldozed. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.